So good morning and welcome. And I'm really grateful to each and every one of you for coming today. And I'm very excited to share the progress we've made so far in our 2030 strategic planning process. So we have a lot to get to today. And here's what we're going to cover. We'll provide a look behind the curtain at our process, the steps that we took to get here, and where we are headed. We will share 7 strategic themes that emerge from the process. And lastly, we'll ask something from each of you. We'd like your thoughts about where you believe we are headed as an institution. When we achieve our goals, what does that future look like? So I'll start off by giving you a bit of context to help you understand how I'm thinking about this process and what it means to me, not just professionally, but personally. But before we dive in, I'd like to take a moment and recognize those individuals who participated in the discovery focus groups to help us gain perspective as part of the strategic planning process. So if you did participate in one of those discovery sessions, could you please stand up? All right. Likewise, if you recently provided feedback on our survey regarding our strategic themes, could you also stand up? How about a big round of applause for all of you for taking the time to do that? I also want to acknowledge the folks in JIRA Partnerships who have been working behind the scenes really, really hard. So if Diane Zile, Brad Prill, and Ryan Osman wave their hands and let us know where you are. So thank you for helping us through this process. And I want to give them a special plug-in because even though we have hired them as consultants to help us, they truly became part of the team. So they're really working with us side by side as if they really are part of UCCS. So thank you for that. So on behalf of myself, the cabinet, and the deans and the broader UCCS community, I really like to thank you personally for helping us in this process. And for those of you who are just connecting with us in this process, don't worry. There's still plenty more to do. So we thank you also for being with us today and showing your interest in shaping the future of UCCS. We are at the start of a 10-year journey. And let's remember, we stand here today because of the work of the generations at UCCS that came before us. Some of these people may be even here today with us. They created the strong foundation on which we operate. Each of these generations took on the challenge to expand programs, to build buildings, and create UCCS as we know it today. So if you've been at UCCS for more than 10 years, could you please raise your hand? Wow, so thank you. It's amazing for those of us who've been here more than 2 decades to see what UCCS is today. So fundamentally, this process of developing our strategy is about growth, change, and becoming. And as a university, it's not surprising that we might struggle with how to manage change. It's not exactly foreign, as it is something that each of us must deal with individually. How do we manage our own growth? How can we benefit from change? How do we harness our own becoming? When I see all of you here today in this room, it makes me hopeful about what we can become together. We have a shared challenge, and engagement is a crucial part of their journey. In fact, when the university concept was born hundreds of years ago, it wasn't about a destination or a place. It wasn't about a building or a set of buildings that we have, but it was about people. It was about the students who wanted to transform their lives for the better through the pursuit of knowledge. It was about the faculty who were determined to share knowledge, testing boundaries through exploration, experimentation, and the creation of knowledge. And of course, it didn't end even there. It was also about the staff who were at the intersection of students and faculty who helped the university concept take hold. The earliest form of administrators who became professionals, mastering the remarkable complexity of the university system and meeting the needs of students, staff, and faculty alike. And it was also about the alumni and community that sprang up around them that helped the university thrive. The word university comes from the Latin word universitas, which means whole, as in the whole universe. And this is who we are. Each group, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and the community brings something different, unique, and essential to this concept. If you take away one of these groups, we would no longer have a university. We would no longer be whole. And so it's that special alchemy, the combination of these specific individuals, that uniquely shapes the trajectory and journeys of those around them. I want to tell you a story that I haven't shared often at UCCS, but feels especially relevant to me today. My path as an academic began long before earning my degrees in the United States. It really started when I was a little boy growing up in India. As a kid, I was ambitious and determined to create my own path. I saw two ways forward: stay in India and become a medical doctor, or leave for the United States to pursue higher education. Each of these choices were complicated by the fact that my family simply didn't have the money to do either. I knew that one path meant leaving everything. And importantly, everyone that I knew. In the end, I was offered a place at Penn State, and I chose to leave my family and my home. So when I arrived in the United States with my luggage and $250 cash in my pocket, I was still ambitious and I was still determined, but I was also more than a little stunned. Everything was unfamiliar to me. And as the next month unfolded, navigating my first weeks of college, my new surroundings, my new community, things got worse. It seemed like the community at home in India was a larger part of my success than I had realized. I was distracted and growing more and more unhappy as the days passed. In short, the journey I had chosen felt like it was too much. I was truly homesick, and I started to face the fact that I wasn't going to make it. My plan wasn't working. I felt like a failure. So I did what any homesick college student does when they are struggling. I called my mother. So it was $3 a minute to call India in those days. That's very important, by the way. For those of you who know me, my mother was and continues to be a huge inspiration in my life. And I was afraid to tell her what I knew to be true, that I missed home. My mom was a great listener, and she really understood what I was going through. She was fully sympathetic. We talked about how I would make the arrangements necessary to come back to my town and my family. And she was on my side. She understood how difficult my situation really was and how badly I felt. it could all be solved. I felt an amazing sense of relief to be going home. Until that moment, just before we hung up. Because as we said our goodbyes, she slipped in one last thought, dropping it at the very last second before hanging up. Venkat, I want you to think about what this will do to your family honor. And then she hung up. Well, her words ran right through me, and I just cried. I mean, I really cried. It was an hour before I could stop crying. That day, even though I wished it weren't true, her words helped me to make the decision that brought me here to UCCS today and made it this home. As someone with many more years in this world, she knew what would matter to me at the end. She knew I could grow through the loneliness and disconnection I felt there in a wholly different world, and that growth was what I needed. In fact, it was what I have chosen. I just needed to be reminded of that. And I sometimes wonder, as we all do, what if? If she hadn't been strong for me in that moment, I wouldn't be standing here before you today. Her strength gave me strength, and it helped me on my journey, and it helped me succeed. I see myself in our students, and I know each and every one of them is gifted to achieve the impossible because someone believes in them. And when I think of Universitas and our community as a whole, there's a recognition that each of us comes here today with our own story. We have our own individual hills to climb, along with our own goals. But we should also recognize that each of us influences the lives of others and contributes to the whole. And like those generations that came before us, we are about to write our own story, and we write this chapter together. This is the work of our generation. The 7 strategic themes that are emerging as the start of our strategy answer the needs expressed by faculty, staff, students, alumni, and the community. The strategy is developing out of the many voices we heard, and it is centered around you. Through that lens, we focus on your journeys, offer you strength, and support your success. Because your journey is our journey. Your strength is our strength. And your success is our success. And with that, I'd like to share with you our developing strategy, which we are calling University 2030. So, thank you. All right, the strategic planning update. Let's get down to business. So, as we started this, we wanted to take a different approach from the past. We don't want to document that sits on the shelf. We wanted a living document. We selected JERA partnerships because we knew they could help us explore new options for this type of work with a new process. We started this process with perspective, which is focus groups and surveys that many of you participated in, and I truly appreciate the value you have provided us. So here's what was accomplished in the perspective phase. The JERA team conducted individual interviews with key leaders at the university, within the CU system, and with the regions. They conducted focus groups throughout campus with key stakeholders, including faculty, staff, and students. In the focus groups, we worked through a variety of tools that gained input and insight on our purpose, our stakeholders, evolving patterns and trends, as well as the changing landscape of higher education. And we asked 4 key questions. What's right? What's wrong? What's confused? And what's missing? And here's what we learned. So this was the collective answer to what is right. Things like location, faculty, students, collaboration, diverse, engaged, inclusive, and pride. I was very happy with this slide. And then you told us what was wrong, confused, and missing. My commitment to you is trust and transparency. So I wanted to kind of blank out a few things. That wouldn't be right, would it? So these are some of the things we need to address and work on. Communications, trust, culture, lack of faculty and staff, of course, parking, retention, resources, funding, and silos. By the way, even though I make fun of parking, it is a big deal. I know that, okay? So we're not making it easy. We're going to keep working on it. And I'm sure some of these are a result of a rapid growth we have experienced in the last 2 decades. I mean, if you look at how fast we grew, these have to come into play. But I want to personally commit to you that I want to work with you in addressing these challenges. I think it's important that we do that. Part of the reason for this thoughtful strategic planning is to help us lay out a balanced plan and approach for managing our growth. I truly believe we are uniquely positioned. With your support, we can address these challenges and find opportunities and build a successful and vibrant future for all of us. So over the past few months, we have moved from the perspective phase to the planning phase. This has included additional discussions and sessions with the cabinet and the deans. And we launched surveys with faculty, staff, alumni, and the broader community. So today, you will learn about new opportunities to participate in the planning process. And I'm confident that many of you will step up to do so. Our regions have also been working on the broader strategy for the CU system, and they have identified these priorities for all 4 CU campuses: student success, affordability and access, fiscal sustainability, reputation, and impact. And as you will see, these priorities align very well with the strategic themes that have evolved from the work we are doing together. Now, allow me to share with you the preamble, the overarching guiding principles before we put the themes in front of you, and the strategic themes that have emerged from the work we've done together thus far. The preamble. The University of Colorado Springs Strategic Plan shows how the creation, transmission, and application of knowledge serves our students, our community, and the common good. As we plan our future with this strategic plan, we are guided by these values: student focus, integration, innovation, collaboration, inclusive diversity, dynamic responsible growth, and integrity. These values inform every action we take, and each strategic theme will be pursued within the context of these values. I want to address a little bit of the feedback we got from the survey. You saw we sent out a set of themes and said, tell us what's missing. We heard you, we listened to you, and we have modified these themes in order to incorporate the key ideas you all offered. There is no prioritization of the themes. They are all important. So I'm going to take you through each of these themes and the key messaging that supports them. Strategic theme 1. Expand scholarly achievements by investing in exceptional and diverse faculty needed to conduct and support research and creative works. This creates access to the best opportunities and potential. Strategic theme 2. Enhance strategic enrollment and retention efforts to drive long-term stability and sustainability. Ensuring that we keep our students in school and help them graduate, and that ensures the longevity of the institution. Strategic theme 3. Foster a community of engagement and inclusive belonging that creates life-changing educational experiences in teaching, learning, and co-curricular activities. This will change lives for the better, and it makes a difference. Strategic theme 4. Invest deliberately and sustainably in our people, processes, buildings, and technology to align with our strategic growth plans. This ensures we continue to be one of the best places to work for. Strategic theme 5. Strengthen and expand revenue sources to ensure future growth and improve student affordability and access. This will ensure adequate support for our faculty and staff as we continue to take calculated risks. Strategic theme 6. Support competitive programs and initiatives, both existing and new, that show the university's unique value and identity in the higher education landscape. This will ensure that we stay relevant and innovative. Strategic theme 7. Pursue mutually beneficial community outreach and partnerships that align with our mission to create opportunities for faculty, staff, and students, and to enhance the community we serve. This will ensure that our ties to the community continue to remain strong. Now, we all understand what these themes are. However, there is more work to be done. We can't just rely on these yet. So going forward, we need to have goals under those strategic themes. We need to have objectives under those goals and make sure that we have key deliverables. And not just to feel good about the themes, but how do we go all the way? That gives us clarity and directions. Having dreams is great, but not having a path to get there may not be the best way to do it. So this is the work that we're going to do. So here's what's coming next and how you can engage and help us. So now we are going from planning into action and structure. For those of you who are interested, we would like to invite you to participate in cross-functional teams around each strategic theme to develop the goals, objectives, and key deliverables. Then we'll work on putting together the right structure to accomplish these goals, including project teams and metrics to measure success. I hope all of you are going to sign up. However, if you choose not to participate on one of the teams, I would still encourage you to stay informed by regularly visiting our strategic planning website, because we are planning on putting all the information we get up there so you can see how the ideas we're hearing are coming together to form this plan. So we mentioned asking you to participate in the beginning. So here we go. As part of our strategic plan, we are in the process of articulating a clear vision of the future. We have taken a small step towards that today, but we have further to go. And while we have a strong point of view on where we believe we are headed, we want to hear more from you on that front. We have carved out this time for a table discussion around these two questions. What does the future look like for UCCS in 2030? And when we accomplish our strategic themes, what would success look like? Keep in mind, our vision is already established, and our mission is dictated by statute, so don't plan on changing those. Right? Those two are not to be worked on. So what we are looking for here is what you envision the future would look like in 2030. And if we attain our strategic themes, what would success look like from your perspective? All right, here are the instructions, what we're going to do. So you'll need to designate a scribe at your table who will try to write legibly. Please write legibly, because we're going to collect those. Capture the thoughts and ideas of everyone at the table. Designate a spokesperson to share a sample of your table's work during the report back. And we'll be collecting all the notes and posting them on the strategic planning website. So here are a few questions that you could consider just to kind of get the thought process going. If our success were guaranteed, what does the campus look like in 2030? What type of students will we have? What type of faculty will we have? What type of staff will we have? And what activities do we engage in? And what's important to us? So it's very likely you have a different point of view, which would be great. That's the whole idea of bringing you together. So we want to hear them all. So here's how it's going to go. We're going to have about 20 minutes for you to work at your tables, and there'll be a report back. And then we'll talk about what's next and how you will get involved. So we're going to get started. If you are 1 or 2 or 3 people at a table, please find another table with vacant seats so that we can kind of have a good conversation. So thank you very much. We'll see you in 20 minutes. So.
We've got a good 15 minutes set aside for some report backs, right? So let's figure this out. Whose birthday is closest to today? Do I have any March birthdays? Any March birthdays? Right here. So this table is going to go first. Who's your spokesperson?
It's me.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Tell us who you are.
Hi, everyone.
Everybody, happy birthday.
I'm Sabrina Wienholtz. Hi, everybody. I'm turning 40 years old on Friday.
Oh.
So let's talk about the future. Okay. So we talked a lot. We talked a lot, and I won't give you all of it, but in terms of what does the campus look like in 2030, we really want it to be a green space, an inviting space with successful students that are able to access their education on their own terms. So there was talk about being able to take a class at midnight and being able to sort of block things the way you need to block them, and being able to have the experience that you need to have to be successful versus sort of the antiquated, potentially, idea of what a successful college student looks like. So there's a lot of talk about innovation in that way. We talked about what kinds of students, faculty, and staff do we have. We have more faculty and staff to support our growing student population of very successful students who are having a wonderful experience here and getting jobs and able to then support the community. We talked a lot about the Colorado Springs community and being not just an economic engine for the region, but also a civic engine, a cultural engine for the region, integrating in those ways so that we are able to really to share our value, because we have value, and it's apparent, and we know what that is, and we can speak to that. Did I miss anything? Table. Okay. That is all.
Way to set the stage. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Hands up. Oh, here you go. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay. My name is Tam, and I work in Office of Financial Aid. And we had a combination of Student and Sustainability Office and Financial Aid at our table. So one shared with us that the slide that talked about what is not working, the communication was there. And we talked about how hard it is for different departments or student groups to communicate the events that they're having. So they recently had an event at the End Center, and it was a disappointing turnout. And is it really up to the individual group, or could there be a smarter way for that information to be shared? We spoke about the campus in 2030 looking really different, and some concern about how does West Campus, Main Campus, East Campus feel connected? Is everyone coming here for town hall? Are we going to them? How do we get there? What does that look like? And what sustainable options do we have within that transport? We spoke about the importance of the Colorado Springs community, the significance of jobs that our graduates want to stay here for. Big topic, but the significance of that. Did I miss anything? All right.
Great. Anyone from this side of the room ready to go? Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Rex Walsh, and I'm an interim dean of LAS. Our table focused on a number of themes. We'd like to see 20,000 students here by 2030, with many more international students and out-of-state students. We'd like UCCS to be a destination school, and not simply a safety school for students. We'd like UCCS to enhance its teaching quality over the years, so that we can retain small classes and can focus on quality teaching. We'd like to have a serious effort made to reach out to rural areas in southern Colorado and recruit students from there. We'd like to see the community of Colorado Springs look to UCCS as a leader and not simply as a resource or an economic engine. We'd like UCCS to take a leadership position in the civic community of Colorado Springs on sustainable energy. We'd like to see a stronger College of Education so that the diverse students that come to our school have diverse teachers who teach them. And finally, not surprisingly, we'd like to find some mechanism to move the needle on public funding for higher education off of dead zero.
All right, who wants to go next? Oh, right here. We're coming to you next, though.
Good morning. I'm Joanna Bean, Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving, and our table's discussions fell into a couple broad categories. Regarding the who is here in our physical space, we talked about what may happen on North Nevada on West Campus as that grows, and what does that mean similarly to what Tam talked about. How do we all get around, and how do we make the different parts of campus accessible, particularly to students who are trying to work school into their busy lives? Perhaps a sky ride, one person suggested. And an enhanced shuttle system. And then that led to a conversation about the makeup of our student body overall, and how many of that, what percentage of our student body is on campus and what percentage is online, and how do you build community and affinity and then alumni connection when you have students who are online, because that the student experience online may work better in the way they want to access education, but then that creates challenges for us. We talked about faculty and staff having more tenured lines, less burnout, being more fully staffed, which then in turn will enable us to focus on metrics and organizational learning and being able to think about what we're doing. And then we also talked about, given all of those things, what does that look like for student recruitment and retention, ensuring our access, the financial access for students, and that the students we do admit are ready to succeed here. And ultimately, how do we communicate the value of a UCCS degree and the education here and compete in a marketing and communications way with all the other higher education institutions and really consumer brands that are out there? Good.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'm Martin Garner from the library. I'm going to read all 3 pages of notes right now. We said many of the same things. Our top 3 themes, diversity and revenue sources, being more collaborative, and having a cleared and shared understanding of the role of research and teaching. That was quick, see?
All right, who's next? We have time for a few more. Good.
Hi, I'm Valerie McClinton. I work in academic advising. We echoed a lot of the other sentiments, but kind of seemed to land on how do we strike a balance between meeting the needs of our changing generation, especially with regard to technology, while also building community, whether that's in the classroom, outside of the classroom, with the larger community. We spoke a lot about enhancing opportunities for one-on-one teaching and retaining faculty and graduate students that can add to our resources and perhaps be attractive to perspectives, but also being really mindful of how we grow. Is it quality over quantity? Because we, at the core, want to maintain that strong ethic of care that we have within our community. That's something that we recognized as a selling point to students, and wanting to hold fast to that. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think other than that, we really kind of echoed what we've heard already.
Okay, here we go. I'm coming back to you, though. All right.
Good morning. I'm Terrainer Brown. I am the Assistant Dean of the College of Education, and our table discussed quite a few things, most of which echo a lot of what we've already heard. There are a couple of additions. We want $20 million in research funding. We would love for our staff and faculty to have the numbers that are equivalent with our peer institutions. We also, like the interim dean for LAS said, want to be a first choice school for high school students in Colorado and beyond. We would love for every student to have either a research or an arts experience prior to graduation. And then finally, we also talked about the physical integration with the city, so more green space, bike paths, and a stronger downtown presence.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm April Keller, College of Education. We talked about a lot of the same things, but mainly the makeup of our students, and then also student support and the community. So, for instance, what is a traditional student? What is that even now? I think that's changed now, and then what's it going to be in 2030? Our traditional student is looking a lot different, and how can we support them? For instance, coming up with more inclusive ways of learning, giving students different options to do the same project, affordability, different things like that. Also research opportunities. We're hoping that campus will look more diverse, and how do we support that? One suggestion was kind of expanding Mosaic and that office. Asking for more feedback from alumni and the people that have left, and keeping track of them, see where they go, see how successful we were. Also, keeping close our community and relationships within Colorado Springs, just across the street. Do they know what's happening here? And then also community colleges, keeping a better relationship with them and drawing those students here, making it easier for students to come here after they've been at the community college. And then being more innovative, thinking of creative solutions, new ideas, looking at other universities, not just doing the same thing that we're used to, finding new ways and being more resourceful. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Okay, we have probably time for one or two more. Who would like to go next? Okay, Brad, go all the way over there.
Hi. We talked about what would happen if we didn't grow substantially. We talked about what happens if we invest in the students that we have very deeply, particularly when we're talking about future revenue. What happens if we invest in the people that we have, we recruit from this area? We get students who are from the local community, from the region, invest deeply in them, allow them to have those deep, meaningful experiences where they are problem solving, where they are doing critical thinking, where they are learning to think flexibly. And maybe in 10 years, then we have alumni who are in a place that they can contribute. So that is that leap of faith that we would have to take. We talked about needing a solid understanding not only of the goals that we have in this 2030 campaign, but of the steps that we need to take to get there. So it's not, the language is less loose and we have more ways to measure what it is that we're doing. Did I mention anything else? Those are our main points that we're adding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Cordova, Mosaic. I think one of the cool things that we talked about was parking. And the reason it caught my ear was because we were talking about parking from the perspective of having a designated parking lot for faculty. Well, it seems kind of a little bit misguided, but at the same time, it's kind of the idea of faculty don't come back to events. And we have lots and lots of events where students are interacting. It would be wonderful to have more faculty there. But if we made it a little bit more convenient somehow, some way, I don't know if parking's the answer, but that's one of the things we were looking at. We also talked about making this a destination school for our Southern Colorado area, where the populations we serve need to be supported more, I think, because I look at a lot of students that need a lot of support. The other thing was, what was it? A more comprehensive worldview. So we were also looking at kind of the whole idea of having faculty that represent our area. So I applaud the fact that we have a lot of international faculty that are hired, but we also need help finding more faculty and nurturing, teaching, raising our own faculty from this area, from Southern Colorado, for the populations we serve as well. I think that's about it. What's that? Supporting research faculty, just a lot of things that everybody else has talked about.
Good morning, my name is Nick Lockwood, Office of Orientation. I'm representing a table of faculty, alumni, and staff. To tag along with many of the other wonderful items that you've mentioned, our table conversation centered along belongingness and connection. And what does that look like? How do we measure it? How do we deliver programs that emphasize belongingness and connection? Next, we also talked about, similar to many other tables, UCCS being the #1 institution for here our local students, rather than being seen as a backup institution. Also, we wanted to create space for uncomfortable, diverse conversations. We think that's an important part of essentially moving our faculty towards looking more like our student representation, and also our students having more diversity of thought. Lastly, we wanted to look at how do we grow and be more selective at the same time, and is that something we want to balance, or do we want to go in it one way or the other? And if so, how do we generate a pipeline for whether it be transfer students or first-year students here in our local state? Thank you.
We're going to start our report backs. My name is Diane. This is my good colleague, Brad. If you are the designated spokesperson, this is the time to get, when you go to report back, time to get really close to your microphone, because you can't hear me if I go like this. Right? So you'll hear us kind of go like that. Just remember, keep it, and speak down. So we're going to get started. Whose birthday is closest to today? Do I have any March birthdays? March. Oh, yes, back here? And the rest of you are just lying. My sense is we have a few more March birthdays, right? All right, so we're going to start back here. Who's our spokesperson for this table? Yeah, all right. And it's your birthday? This happened the last time. But
Okay, here's our list of demands. One thing we were concerned about was making sure we have space for both students, staff, and faculty to help with teaching. So thinking about either library growth, like either expanding, making satellite locations, and making sure we have mixed-use spaces for teaching and individual study that extends beyond like 7 p.m. because students will stick around as long as there's an open door. Parking is important, as well as access to parking. People need to be able to actually move around themselves in a safe manner without getting rolled over in a parking lot. We were thinking that we need to expand graduate student options as well as support. More moving around. Austin Bluffs. I think one thing we were concerned about was the safety of our students as they do cross Austin Bluffs Parkway, as well as people moving up and down Nevada and making sure that traffic safety is enforced. Also feasible. Widening Nevada altogether. I think we were looking to increase faculty and staff job retention by thinking about what is the term you used? Like moving away from a contingent faculty model. Also making sure we have more professional development funding for faculty and staff as we continue to grow and improve what we are already doing. Maybe increasing formal relationships and engagement with our community in Colorado Springs, and highlighting what the downtown campus is doing with regard to that. And then in terms of activities, we wanted greater institutional support for faculty on research from start to finish. We wanted to continue and increase our sustainable practices with regard to environmental impact of the university. So maybe more xeriscaping, less grass. People wanted to outsource eating options. Maybe there could be food trucks here. And then also getting local businesses to help honor the students' campus cash cards so they could actually eat something off campus once in a while. Okay.
thank you. Way to set the bar high. Good job.
What's that? Hello. Is this okay? Very good. So I think that we connected with a lot of those themes as well. So I won't repeat everything, but the theme that kind of kept coming up over and over again was the community partnerships piece. Understanding that we want to grow and improve on what we're doing, and a lot of that requires resources, right? So being really intentional about the partnerships that we are building and making sure that that there's opportunities that may lead to resources for as far like corporate partnerships or community partnerships or even grants. So that's going to become more and more important, especially with lack of state funding, right, and other funding sources as well. So that's just something that kept coming up, is the importance of community partnerships. And we also connected with the slide that mentioned the identity crisis, right? We all kind of experience that at some level in different departments and so on. So understanding that there's great needs across the board, whether it be more research opportunities and resources for graduate students and faculty, more resources for student support, especially with our mission serving Southern Colorado. A lot of first-generation students, when we bring these students to our campus, it's important to also have the support structures in place, and that comes in lots of forms, but specifically staff support for students. So.
My name's Greg Krems, and I work in IT and advancement. And we had a great table of 2 pages worth of notes. The highlights were definitely increasing diverse, expanding into the Southern Colorado region. More online degree programs, and that would definitely help with the parking problems. Maybe a greater downtown presence connection, looking different at our campus and maybe more integrated with them, not just up on the mountaintop, and maybe more integrated with the city. A possibility of satellite campuses, different colleges maybe in different locations, possibility of a college of business primarily down at downtown campus or something similar. More deliberate admissions, not open admissions, just more deliberate focus on who we are admitting. Increased internships, more emphasis on career services for our students. More opportunities to get the community on campus more often. And then interaction and collaboration between the colleges, multi-college certifications, continuing education, faculty teaching, outside of their specific college, co-teaching. Maybe something similar to how the GPS program works with multiple people involved with making that work, make it work with the other college programs.
All right, can you hear me now? Great. All right, so my name is Jeff Foster, and I'm representing this table over here of a bunch of very bright people, and I'm going to try my best not to repeat what everybody said, but we found many of the same things. One was selective smart growth for both access and affordability, and working with our institutional partners to address the educational needs of student population mix. We don't want to attract students that we know won't be successful or happy here, and so finding ways to make sure that the students we are attracting are a good fit, and that the ones that aren't a good fit have other opportunities regionally that might feed back into this school. And I know we're already doing a lot of work on that front. And we want to think a little bit about how the student mix changes. First generation will likely continue to be a priority, and we need additional resources and guidance like support structures like were mentioned already for students that might not even know that they should apply for a scholarship when they first get here. But we want to balance sort of access and sustainable finances. We want to attract high-performing students and out-of-state students, but we also want to serve our community and the folks that need it right here. We want to be teaching with the tools that the industry uses. I think that's a really good goal that we can work more towards so that when students leave, they're fresh on the tools that are actually going to be used in the industry of their choice. We want to focus on integrity, and that's one of the things mentioned here, but on integrity in students and faculty and staff and processes and academic rigor, things like that. And we want to make sure we have infrastructure appropriate to our institutional needs and our goals. And that's in classrooms, that's office space, that's parking, that's pedestrian experience. And then a larger footprint in the community, driving educational growth at all levels. So that as we're partnering with people in the community, with schools, and with things that are going to feed students in, that we have more capable and successful students because we've been involved in their life early on.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? No. There we go. My name is Paul, and I work in the Office of Budget and Planning. What does our campus look like in the future? We would love to see the continued development of West Campus, whereas right now it's a couple buildings, and I know there's more planned, but more of seeing it as an actual campus and not just a site where we have a couple of shiny new buildings. Part of that would also entail better transportation. Part of this would be through partnerships with the city, because as of right now, as a commuter, if you live in the northern half of the city, it's not the best situation if you have to get to campus, because then you definitely have to park on campus, so maybe better public transportation. More out-of-state students, probably more of a 20 to 25% non-resident student, just to help us with those times where residents, either there's a tuition freeze or just a fluctuation. more visibility throughout the nation. The Chancellor was talking about the couple students that made it to nationals for track, and that would be great if the nation knew it as opposed to just our small community here. So more advertising that and getting that out there so that we attract more high-tier athletes from high schools and that sort of thing. We also thought it would be a great idea to expand our online presence, and part of that is to reach non-resident students. Continuing to hire faculty that have real-world experience, as that really does help students be able to get a perspective of what they'd like to do in the future by meeting someone and engaging with someone that has that experience. Continue to strengthen our military relationships, since we do have so many bases and so many military affiliated families here. We'd also like to increase the availability of internships so that preferably at least half the students when they leave here will have some internship in a field that they are interested in going into, so that once they leave UCCS, they don't just have the academic knowledge, but they also have some practical experience going out into the workforce. And also, just a final note of having more nationally recognized speakers on campus, as it would continue to draw more attention at the national level to UCCS.
Hi, Brett Fugate, Academic Advising. All right, so our table came up with a lot of similar things here. We talked about increasing the academic space to support our students, labs, classroom, offices, shared spaces where students can be together and stay on campus. We also talked about a more robust infrastructure around teaching technology and an increase in overall online course offerings. Part of that success also looks like a more nimble and flexible ability to offer classes independent of method and mode. We also talked about strategic student growth and kind of balancing that quantity versus quality. And if we are looking at increasing kind of, the academic rigor or academic admission standards, how do we best connect students in Southern Colorado who don't meet those standards to Pikes Peak and Pueblo Community College and other places where they can then kind of pipeline into UCCS in a more streamlined way. We also talked about kind of the reliance on part-time lecturers and how that negatively impacts students' ability to connect with faculty and connect onto campus, because our faculty are also part-time as well, and recognizing the research component of faculty service. So we see our students will be a greater mix of out-of-state and international students, but we still want to be a university that serves Southern Colorado, and that's going to include a mix of traditional and non-traditional students. We also feel that better connection with CU's system and the branding awareness can help us grow beyond Colorado Springs. There's still a lot of work to do in Colorado Springs, but we feel like there needs to be growth regionally and even nationally, so that we're both attracting faculty, students, and staff who want to work and invest in us.
Okay. Am I on? Okay. So again, I'll try not to be duplicative, but we thought in 2030 we would be the first choice institution in Southern Colorado. We also want to think about how affordability and selectivity can go hand in hand to ensure that we have the proper retention and graduation rates that we're looking for. We also talked about expanding online and leveraging technology to serve Southern Colorado. We want to attract more diversity, being fully staffed to address the burnout that was mentioned up top, and as a faculty member, I sure know how that feels. Thinking about grant work and external grants, do we have the proper support to do that well? Focusing on graduate students we talked about, and how there isn't much support to support students who are out of state or international. So how do we make ourselves more competitive in that landscape? Also, the lecturer faculty, how do we bring them into the community, but also how do we expand full-time faculty? We also briefly talked about how are we going to prioritize all this, because all of this is really great, but there's probably some things that we can't do. We talked about sports. We want a football team over here, apparently. School spirit, school culture, those kinds of things to attract more students. And then proper investment in high impact practices. We know that there are things that will retain students, and we're not doing them. And the ones that we're doing, we're not investing in it very well.
Okay, we have a time for a couple more, so we'll take one on this side.
No? How about now? Sorry. Okay, so I checked off all the ones that everyone else had mentioned: expanding physical location, online programs. I was driving in and heard a Arizona State University online program on the radio. And so how do we get that word out that we can offer those kinds of programs? The expanding physical location, not just downtown. I was just thinking maybe we have an East Colorado Springs facility or satellite office or satellite building and classrooms. And we had some aspirational goals. We wanted parking to be free in 2030. Chancellor, right? And then we wanted to be known, UCCS known as the premier sports medicine university in the state, the country, maybe even the world. And by increasing military affiliation, I think someone mentioned more partnership with the military, but we wanted to enhance adaptable programs to allow them to complete their degrees anywhere. University of Maryland has had a long time presence in Germany, in every place where the troops are located, and people can, soldiers and their staff can get degrees from University of Maryland. Why can't we do that as well? We have such a strong military presence here, and we want to make it easier and more readily available programs that they can take with them and graduate, and not just leave behind credits. And again, business partnerships, everyone's mentioned those, but we want those to be profit centers. And we want them to fund programs, faculty positions, and state-of-the-art facilities. And then one of our other aspirational desires is having a food court on campus. And have just more selections for students, like Colorado State University has, Taco Bell and Berger King and all of those places where students really, really, really want to go and not eat, campus food all the time. So food court on campus.
Our group said most of the same stuff, so I don't want to get too much into the same thing. But in summary, I think more options. So what does that mean? That means a living learning laboratory. That means virtual reality, artificial intelligence embedded in many of our classes and classrooms. More hybrid classes, more capabilities for the online aspects, but also more support for those online aspects. We really want to look different from other universities in both the town and the state. We just don't want to be that campus on the hill. So our group kind of said just adding a little bit of a funk to our campus. And I don't mean odor type funk. I mean more of a good look for our campus. We had the pleasure of having a student in our group, and we all sort of agreed that the campus aesthetically looks great. But as a student and as someone who works with students, all of us here, we feel that we don't think that this campus has a student feel to it. We have very pretty buildings, we have very pretty grounds and all, but we want more of a student feel to it. So I think that's what we said for 2030, sorry, that's jumping way ahead, sorry, Chancellor. And then our biggest aspiration, I would say, are centers for innovation that are cross-disciplinary. So I think that is really the future for our students and for our faculty and staff that can manage and adapt and teach in those types of settings. And lastly, I think that we want more visibility to the surrounding community as well. We have a lot of great stuff going on our campus, athletes making records, breaking records, and where is that press coverage? It's very minimal. And when we do get press coverage, we as a university have to be ready to accept that and that not jump to conclusions. Oh my gosh, there's a press car on campus. Call everyone. No, it's not that. It could be a good thing as well. So those are our aspirations.
Okay, so we have time for one more. I don't know if it's a paper, scissors, rock competition or wind sprints to determine which table wants to go, but does any table feel particularly enthused about what they'd like to report back?
Oh, man. So we did have a couple things that were similar. One of them is about the branding. Are we UCCS? Are we CU? Depending upon which advertisement you happen to look at, we thought that creates some confusion, particularly around the just outside of ourselves. Who is UCCS? And so some resolution might be useful to us. On the space issue, those pool tables downstairs actually make a difference to students. And so we're at maximum capacity in terms of students being able to claim space, not just in terms of academics, not just in terms of their terms of hanging out for hanging out's sake, but that feel, that funk, if you will. We think there might be a little bit more space issues. If we have more of those spaces, we might be able to help them create that opportunity, some elbow room to be able to collaborate both on and off the clock. The building names, the pathway names, we still are very parochial. We know where things are at. But in terms of outsiders coming in and people we want to invite in, sometimes our naming is problematic. So 2 Gallagher's, where is 1420 on this campus? Everywhere, right? So those types of things to be thought about. We have a multiple hat culture in terms of that burnout, and I think that was mentioned over at the table here. In 2030, we would sort of like to see no more than 2 hats per person as being the standard rather than the things that just sort of happen because we have to. That means more staff, more faculty, more leadership to be able to do that. We've talked a little bit about the research as well, the support at the beginning, not just in terms of we get the grant and then that will be where the support comes from, but before then, in establishing that culture. And that might mean trying to figure out if we really are going to be all in terms of research first or all in terms of teaching first. What does that really mean for us? And just to clarify what that's going to look like and then have our priorities aligned to that. And then lastly, we do need more classroom space, particularly that 30 to 45 sort of stuff. We're getting some big classrooms, but we're still struggling with that. And that classroom demand is not just in terms of faculty being able to participate during certain times, but also student demands are still in some of those traditional areas, and we tend to forget that. So we have classrooms that are open on Sunday afternoons, yes, but the students aren't coming through the doors during those time periods, and so that means we still have to think about the space issues. I think that's all we had.
Thank you. We had almost a dead heat, so we're going to do one more quick last one. And then for those of you who didn't get to share, we're going to be walking around and capturing and gathering all of your notes so that we can compile them together and post them on the website so that you can see what everybody else was talking about too in the other sessions. So.
Thank you. All right, to keep it brief, I have one what's right and one what's lacking.
Tell us who you are, what you do.
I am Tim Kirkwood. I'm a parent, and I have a child in high school, so I am aware of what a number of her high school friends are struggling with, trying to figure out college, and what I'm struggling with, trying to figure out what my own daughter might do for college. And first, what's right? Kramer Library is a fantastic asset for the Colorado Springs community. I think it's the top asset that this campus offers to the Colorado Springs community. Protect that. And in terms of enhancement, the simplest thing, like everything else, parking. Getting access to the library isn't always easy. What's lacking, specifically with regard to the Colorado Springs community and high school students? High school internships. The physics department website speaks to an internship program for high school students. It's a fantastic idea. It's not funded. That was a big hopeful that I had for my daughter, and doesn't look like we're going to be able to do it. I think that working with research faculty, well, here, let me just say, I think for a high school student to be able to work one-on-one with a university professor gives that student access to a depth of intellectual capacity you don't find typically in K through 12, rarely on TV, and never on Facebook. An opportunity to get an understanding of scholarship. I've been to 2 undergraduate schools, graduate school, and I never gained a true understanding of scholarship until I worked at a research university for 5 years. And I think it's one of the most noble endeavors of mankind, doing good research. And right along with that, the experience of what research is. You know, the pursuit of research is, again, I think, one of the most noble endeavors ever invented by human civilization. And a high school student, especially a high school student with some academic ambitions, would benefit greatly by exposure to that. Okay.
My name is Diane. This is my good colleague, Brad. So there you go. Happy birthday. Kinda.
Happy birthday. Oh, come on, Tabby. All right, so our themes, we talked about research infrastructure, how it needs to be improved, or how we would like to see it when we're successful. It'll be improved. We'll have more support, we'll have more funding, we'll have teaching assistantships, coordination for undergraduate research, having adequate faculty and staff so that we don't have to teach overloads all the time, which will help grow the student body. We will have greater connection in our community, and we will have space improvements on campus, and we will work with the community to develop alternates for transportation, so we don't have to worry about parking so much.
Here you go, you're next up. Oh, whoa, that was quick. Thank you, Martin. Oh, my name is Tisha, and I attend meetings. I'm just kidding. We told jokes for 20 minutes. Also kidding. I'm in the chemistry department. I'm also here as the co-chair of the Faculty Assembly Women's Committee. So we had many. We went to a second page. So we talked about the University of the 21st century and being really and transforming the ability not only to get around campus, as Martin just said, for transportation, and redesigning campus so that transportation is more fluid and maybe a monorail or ski lifts or something that not only incorporates modernization of transportation but also maintains the beauty of the campus. That was one of the biggest things in that word list. We do have a beautiful campus, not just a beautiful view. We have a really beautiful campus. And then also that 21st century teaching model and interaction model between the faculty and the students for both teaching and learning. And we're excited about what might be coming in the next decade for advancement in online learning or even virtual interaction within the classroom. Well, we talked about advocating accessibility for education, both internationally and so for the world to enter into our classrooms, but also for our local community. What are the opportunities available to support our local community and to keep our students who are here? How do we keep them in that pipeline from K through post-secondary, and even how do we educate their parents? So how do we support parents who want to go back to school, so these working adults? I think that's been a model of our university for quite a long time. And then fostering
that community on campus, including, so not just those educational opportunities, but the functional being here opportunities. So I had shared a story about how I remember when the shopping center at North Nevada didn't even exist. And before I graduated from here, I filled out that survey that said, love the campus, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do, why would I be here? And very exciting, offering opportunities for students to come here and have an experience, and not just an education, but those experiences that support the education that they'll get here. Did I touch on all that? Yes. Yeah, I think that's page 2. We'll go for it. Okay. Oh, wait. Something about getting paid more. Yeah. But a balance between being a teaching and research institution. So we would like to see more opportunities for research, more PhD programs, but also support for, as far as like professional development for our teaching faculty here on this campus. And that pay needs to be a reflection of what we value. So that there is a balance between those two things. Okay, thank you.
Hello. I'm Brenda Bond in the Chancellor's office, and I raised my hand to be the scribe. I didn't realize that meant that you were going to be the spokesperson too, but my table thought that made sense. It took us a few minutes to warm up, but we came up with 3 areas that we'll talk about. The one that had the most impact on our group here about what we're going to look like in 2030 is UCCS and Southern Colorado. So we talked about how can UCCS contribute to Southern Colorado. A lot came up. And we thought if we could create a pipeline to partner with Southern Colorado for people to bring their skills back home, wouldn't that be marvelous? You take 2 years at your community college, you come here, and you know that you're going to go back home. And some of the things, the programs that, I don't have any water, hang on. The programs that we thought might be interesting are programs that people face. What if we talked about drought? What if we talked about farming, which we don't currently do? And then we talked about sustainability. And both of those things, drought and farming, could tie into that, and people could go back home. We talked, what's that? And research, yes. Then we talked about, wouldn't it be something if when you ask someone why they're here, they said, because we want to be, not because this is what we could afford, or this is where we ended up. We really wanted to go to Boulder, but because we want to be. And then lastly, we talked about strategy of bringing in non-resident and international students. We talked about what is the right mix and how would you know? We happen to have Provost Christensen on our table who told us that we're almost there. We talked about maybe it was 75-25 by 2030, and we're 85-15 roughly currently. And then we had this discussion that didn't have a conclusion about if we reached that goal, what would that do to our student population? What would it look like? And overarching, we said that it would improve diversity, but that was about as far as we got. That's all from our table.
My name is Melinda Hageman, and I work here in the development office on campus. And our table talked a lot about the college experience and how students, even in 10 years, are still going to come here because they want to have a relationship with the people that they're here at school at. And that's a relationship with their faculty, with their peers, with staff. Even as we grow, we should still be working to maintain that small experience so that you know who you're talking to across from campus, so that you're not lost in the crowd. And we think the students that will be here, they're coming in because they've, at that point in time, they have grown up in this environment where they've valued emotional intelligence. They're very inclusive in their nature, and they know what they want. And so we're going to need to be able to incorporate that into our environment here. We talked about strong community partnerships being a key to the future, thinking about our students who are very much here because they want to work. And so what are those internship programs? Can we develop those out a little bit more? So relationships with our local employers, and so that students really have that learning opportunity that will set them apart as they're going into the job market. We also talked about expanding or really improving our student common spaces, and that being a theme to also help bring that community together of that student environment. Owning the outdoor lifestyle experience. A lot of students come here because it's Colorado and it's outdoors and we've got it, so let's own it and make it part of the campus experience. So is there anything else I missed or the group wants to add? Okay, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Jacqueline Jimenez. I'm an education major. I'm a junior. We spoke a lot about this within my table. Basically, for the first question, ideally we want UCCS to be widely diverse within our staff and our students. We want to make a shift in recruiting more students. We already know that UCCS is not the most affordable, but it is a very affordable college. So we have that benefit of being able to target low-income schools, like recruiting from an early age, better marketing skills. I think if we target those low-income schools, we get to have more diverse students coming in and really being able to understand the fundamentals at UCCS and all the resources, because it is a beautiful city and there's really great people here, and using those resources can really come to our benefit. In UCCS, at Colorado College and at CSU Fort Collins, they have minority halls. So really, when you think about it, when you have that first year experience, you live on campus, you live in the dorms, and being able to have that resource center where you're around people, where you feel welcome and invited because you're within your own culture, I think that's something that our students in the future can really embrace, and us as a community embrace within our college. We also talked about parking. We all want better parking. So being able to be resourceful with our land and everything that we have here within our university, being able to expand the parking lots and just opening up space where everyone is more accessible to coming into class and leaving. There was a women's resource center, but it was cut off due to funds. So being able just to have their own resource center for everyone, I mean, women, men, where everyone can go to really feel comfortable and find the answers that they need for whatever they're looking for, is really important to us. What else did we say? We spoke about our Mosaic office. It's very tiny. It's in the UC, so when people come out from one door, they miss it, when really the Mosaic office is where we build those events that really make UCCS and invite people in. We want to be able to have the most and ultimate support from our staff and faculty, as well from our students, and I think admissions plays a big role in this, and just being able to support and give guidance. I forget your name. Ashley, she told us about this guy named Roger Worthington, where he's doing a great deal right now at Colorado College, where basically he's guiding them and he's giving them really great resources of a 5-year consulting plan, basically just telling them, this is what you can do to include more diversity and to include people more so they can feel invited and welcomed. For our third question, we didn't really get into it just because we went rambling around. But we all are involved within our education and our academics and our sports. Hopefully by the year 2030, we want to be able to, for everyone, to be more included and to come and support each other, because ultimately that's the goal in life. We want to be able to support each other and be there for one another and just being a great resource. Do you guys have anything else to say? Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard, but in colleges, the pre-collegiate program is very popular, where basically like you're recruiting a bunch of students to go, and we have a great nursing program already. So being able to pull in more students beforehand and expand our pre-collegiate program here would be a really good resource. Anything? Good? Okay.
So I'm Terry Bolt. I'm the founder of the Bachelor of Innovation and LPMR professor. We had a table with largely faculty and one student who had to leave for class, another who joined us. Looking at 2030, our first thing was we hope by 2030 to reach R1 status. We have aggressive goals. That's going to mean either focused investment in some areas or finding some other ways to release faculty so there can be more research. But then talking from the students, we actually want to make sure that as we grow both in enrollment and in research, we find ways to make sure we maintain the individuality and the connections to students, because that's very important to them. And I think we can, as UCCS, we can do that. We can hire teacher research scholars who actually still interact with students, doesn't matter what they're doing. We talked about some ideas that weren't on the normal list, which was finding increased collaborations with other universities around the world and joint academic programs as a way of both increasing our visibility without it costing us a lot of money, but it does mean finding ways to work through bureaucratic things that are not necessarily easily solved, because some of the things might involve a joint degree with another university that, you know, administrators in the registrar office say, we can't do that. We can do all kinds of things. We just got to find a way to make that happen. We ended up with talking about finding ways to help motivated students who have deficits in skills to actually be effective. There was some discussion of a study that showed that in the first 2 years, many of the unprepared students don't actually get much better. We need to find ways when we get them into our classes, if they have deficiencies, we've got to find a process to get them back up to speed so they can become successful as they're here at UCCS, so they leave with a positive experience and an actual growth in their understanding of the world and stuff. Anything else I missed?
Hi guys, I'm Jeremy Toll. I work with dining and hospitality. We mostly talked about the mega trends that are coming up within the next 10 years and how high school students graduating is probably going to drop and then come back up. This is going to make for interstate and out-of-state competition a little bit higher for people coming to UCCS. But we expect that to then bounce back. We're going to start to see our campus and Coast Springs, the city, look a lot more like Denver. And we are already starting to see that with business growth, the university growing, and just our sheer population growth. We hit on the population and that this is going to change and affect the types of people that we have applying and attending this school, and that we feel is a good thing. This is going to lead to a good growth of diverse as possible. And the gap between capacity and demand of service is what led us to our next potential issue. We don't want to see that quality of service decrease just because we ramped up. So we want to make sure that we're keeping a fair balance between all of these things. And we even kind of hit on how we might need to slow down in order to meet these goals to where we don't start to sacrifice the quality of service and things like that on our campus. We also hit on how more students need to live on or very near our campus in order to build that campus culture. We really feel that having them on, we're able to reach them more effectively if they are closer. Engaging on all levels, we do realize that this was kind of tuition dependent, which will definitely affect the strategic growth. We also hit on how residential students and tuition is the key of adding more students. But we then get to the point where we might need to add more residential living areas. We might need to add more places to eat on campus if we were to keep ramping up at that rate without realizing the rate of which we're growing. So we need to know in order to balance out to where we don't cause negativity on ourselves in our workplace and for our students. We really hit on and felt that it was important that retention is more cheaper than enrollment. So if we actually spent more time and our efforts on the retention, that it would actually help balance some of the issues or future issues that we might have. So retention, we felt, was really, really big part of the dynamic and responsible growth aspect. And let's see, we said the legacy. Gentleman here was saying that 50% of the graduates in the last 10 years, or I'm sorry, 50% of our graduates were in the last 10 years. And so at this time, 10 years from now, it could be their kids coming to this college. And so legacy is a very big thing. So we could see some ramping up in our population growth from that. We realized that there was an issue with the work-life balance with some of the retention issues. Being able to, and we see it a lot in dining and hospitality because we do employ a lot of our students. And so we see the stress levels increasing and kind of balancing that. A lot of these kids are learning that for the first time in their lives, maintaining a job and their course load. And so it's really important for us to explain the avenues that they can reach out to for help, that they don't have to do it all by themselves, and this would really help our retention. We really want, the other issue that we saw with that retention was the sense of identity, feeling like they belong here. Venkat hit on how this has become home for him, and we want that for our students. And so things like that will definitely help strive towards better retention rates. We asked what kind of activities we could engage in as well, and we kind of felt like the online curriculum could increase. We could see that help with some of the foreseeable future issues, and that we took that with, well, if we did a 2-year live on campus plan, we would then have to increase the amount of buildings we have to live in, the amount of buildings we have to feed that increase. And so it's kind of a catch-22 with a lot of these things, and we also found that some solutions may help other areas for our future and for our themes. But yeah, we mostly hit on the mega trends and the dynamic responsible growth, and I think we hit on that pretty well. You guys want to add anything? Thanks.
Hi there, I'm Steve Holmes, communications senior, 67 days till graduation. I'm also a member of our Student Government Association, so we hear a lot of things in student government. I'm in the unique position I was in the last time I was involved in one of these strategic plans of being the last person to go. So they said it, 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 and they said it. It's all already been said, but we did have 3 unique things. One, we want to build on our reputation and the reputation of our community. U.S. News and World Report just labeled Colorado Springs as the best place to live. So if our community is the best place to live, shouldn't our university be the best place to go? So we're going to make that happen. Number 2, I'm already seeing this in a lot of areas, but we talked about a better path for students that are student employees to become staff employees, to become faculty employees, but a path where they have a knowledge of that they can do this and this and this, and they're going to have a place here at UCCS, just like Dr. Reddy, a home that they can live in. And then the last one we talked about was a couple of us came from Pikes Peak Community College, and we want to steal something from Pikes Peak Community College. In 2014, when I started at Pikes Peak Community College, one of my professors, Robin Schofield, was starting the idea of service learning. It started with only a couple of classes. When I graduated in 2017, it was up to like 50 or 60 different classes, different faculty members that were engaging their classes with the community, figuring out a way to be doing service to the community that also related to what they were doing. And it wasn't just the ones that you would think of. It was philosophy classes, English classes, communication classes, all kinds of classes ramped up that service learning. So I'd love to see a bigger service learning component here by 2030 so that once again, we're that big part of the community, we have a reputation, and we are an awesome place to be for everybody.
All right, that was fantastic. So as I was hearing everybody speak, I'm also trying to align how much of those align with the strategic themes that we talked about. And so thank you for sharing your thoughts. And as you know, we're going to capture all these and bring them together. And really, really appreciate it. So what's next? And how can you get involved? So now the work begins to determine our goals, establish objectives, and key deliverables for each strategic theme. So we expect to be finalizing and writing the plan in October and November of 2019, with a fully completed plan by mid-December 2019. So that starts giving us these deadlines, right? You got mid-December, because we want to be able to present this to the regions by February of 2020. So that if you finish it by mid-December, before you go off on your holiday, then you back up. So for this, you can start kind of figuring out the timeline, how quickly we need to put all this together. So that gives you some sense of the idea, what we're going to do. Now here's a call to action. So before you leave, please visit each of the stations on the perimeter of the room to share what goals you believe we should have for each theme. And you can even sign up to be engaged further in each of those themes that you feel strongly about. So please don't just leave, please. Be sure to visit these stations before you exit so that we can take your voice and take it further as we build the future. Since you're not going to come back to listen to my closing, I still got half an hour to go. I'm just kidding. But so I just want to close out today's, but that doesn't mean the event has ended and you can go to your themes. So in closing, I'd like to thank all of you for being here today again. Your input and engagement in developing this strategy are essential to moving us into the future. This should not be my plan, the cabinet plan, or the dean's plan. This should be truly be our plan. So I'm grateful for the work we have done together so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing our plans realized in these coming years. So I'm truly, truly excited to be traveling on this journey with you. Thank you. Now, please disperse and go to the themes.